Regular meeting number 8 will now come to order. Please stand for the playing of the national anthem. Councilmember Rosa de Padilla, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, council is grateful to have Bishop Hezekiah Martin of Southfield Missionary Baptist Church here to pray with council. Bishop, welcome back to council.
Thank you, President Harden. Let us go before God in prayer. Most gracious and wise God, it is once again that we come before you to say thank you. We thank you for allowing us to be able to assemble, but God, most importantly, we are thankful for life, health, and strength. It is you, God, that we look for wisdom and guidance, and it is our prayer that you will continue to watch over this council, that you will not only bless them here within the walls of City Hall, but that you will bless them also into the community. For there is a great task that you have put upon them, and you have called them for such a time as this. God, continue to cover them and continue to lead them to where our great city would need to be. God, it is, we ask your choice blessings upon them, upon their family, and give them divine protection as you continue to watch over our great city and continue to protect us from hurt, harm, and danger. It is also our prayer, God, that you will continue to watch over troops in country and overseas, and that you will continue to call us to whom you would call us to be, to help our brothers and sisters who stand in need. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy White, President Harden. Any person who takes any actions to obstruct or interfere with the conduct of tonight's meeting may be charged with disturbing a lawful meeting pursuant to Columbus City Code 2317.12. Any person who enters those areas of city council chambers reserved for city officials or invited guests may be charged with criminal trespass pursuant to Columbus City Code 2311.21.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Hammond. President Hammond. Whoa. That is a few years back. President Harden, how about?
It's pretty cool. Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal was approved. This week's communications received by the city clerk's office are listed on the agenda and will be published in the city bulletin. Are there any communications to be read into the record?
Not at this time.
We'll go around the dais with announcements and resolutions from my colleagues, starting with Councilmember Bangston.
Thank you, President Harden. I'm going to ask Director Orth with our Department of Technology to come forward at this time to take this opportunity to provide us an update regarding the ongoing cybersecurity incident. Director?
Good evening, President Harden, President Pro Tem Dorans, Chair Bangston, distinguished members of council. Thank you for providing me the opportunity to update you on our efforts in response to the cybersecurity attack since our update last week. I'm pleased to share that we've made additional progress with our total remediation now at 95%. As we've emphasized, our most critical systems have been restored, and we remain fully focused on restoring all systems. We have just 21 remaining and have a major infrastructure change that will move the rest of these items forward. We expect that change to take about 1 to 2 months. I'm also pleased to report that our Experian enrollments as of today stand at 22,252 enrolled. As we mentioned last week in council, a limited amount of protected health information, or PHI, for less than 1,000 individuals has been identified in a Division of Fire database that was involved in the cyber attack. The individual notification letters were mailed to those affected people today. We're also posting information on the city's Division of Fire website. As always, we encourage all city employees, residents, and anyone else impacted to take advantage of the Experian identity theft and dark web monitoring service. As a reminder, to ensure that everyone affected has sufficient time to enroll, the enrollment deadline is March 31st, 2025. To enroll, please visit columbus.gov/cyber. In closing, cybercrime remains a persistent challenge for governments, businesses, and individuals alike. We are committed to recovering from this incident, supporting those affected, and strengthening our systems to prevent future attacks. That concludes my update. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Director Orth. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right. And just want to reiterate again from our executive session last Monday, where council members had a chance to, had a privileged conversation, that this is an ongoing investigation, and because of the litigation, limited what we can say publicly. I think that is frustrating for all of us, but we want to make sure that we are not compromising the ongoing litigation or the current investigation. And so with that, Director, I want to thank you for being here weekly. We will move these updates to a more as-needed basis. So as we hit certain milestones, whether that be in the investigation or when we have more information that we can share publicly along the way, we'll be sure to have you back, as well as to provide any updates that the department deems necessary to this council. So thank you again for all your efforts and being here on a weekly basis, and also being ready whenever we call. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Chair Bankston, members of council.
Next, Council President, for my announcements, I do have another guest that I would like to bring forward this time. Derek Clay is with us. He is the new president and CEO of our Columbus Chamber of Commerce. As you all know, Derek Clay is no stranger to council. However, he did want to take a moment to do an official reintroduction, if you will, of himself. Come on, you can come on up, Derek. As in his new capacity with the Chamber of Commerce. And so, good to see you again, Mr. President, and I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you very much. Good evening to President Hardin, Chairman Bankston, and distinguished members of council. It's my honor to stand before you as your new president and CEO of the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. I'm humbled by this responsibility and eager to collaborate with you in years ahead. As I step into this role, I want to emphasize my commitment to reinforcing the strong relationship between the Columbus Chamber of Commerce and the City of Columbus. The Chamber is dedicated to being a partner in progress, advocating for policies and initiatives that will ensure Columbus continues to thrive as a place where businesses, entrepreneurs, and families can flourish. Small businesses are the lifeblood of our economy. Yet despite their untenable impact, small businesses often face significant challenges in their efforts to expand. From limited access to capital, to navigating complex regulations, to managing the growing pains that come with success, small business owners juggle hurdles just to stay afloat. Support programs are vital, whether they are funding, mentoring, or training. They help small businesses thrive. Thank you, City Council, for investing in these initiatives and trusting the Chamber to help drive economic progress in Columbus. Ultimately, when small businesses succeed, communities thrive. They create jobs, foster innovation, and contribute to the local tax base, enabling the growth for vital infrastructure and public services. Programs that help small businesses grow and scale are not just investments in individual enterprises. They are investments in the future of our communities, our economy, and our society. As Chamber President and CEO, my priorities include driving economic development and job creation by supporting both established businesses and emerging industries, strengthening workforce development through partnerships between education and employers that will help equip residents with future-ready skills. I will also advocate for infrastructure improvements, transportation, housing, and sustainability to keep Columbus a great place to live and work. More importantly, I'm committed to ensuring that the benefits of our region's growth are shared equitably, especially with underserved communities. Finally, I'd like to reiterate my gratitude to the Columbus City Council and Mayor Ginther for your unwavering dedication to our community. Your leadership is pivotal to shaping the future of Columbus, and the Chamber stands ready to be your partner in that endeavor. Thank you for your time, your trust, and your steadfast commitment to our city, and I look forward to working with each of you alongside of you as we move into this exciting next chapter in our community. And if I can, President Hardin, Chairman Bankston, I'd like to introduce our new Vice President of Government Relations, Andy Hardy, who's going to be starting on the 18th, but I thought it would be great if we introduced him here before you today. But we'll be back to your offices to individually talk about our goals moving forward.
Thank you, President Clay, and looking forward to your leadership. You were steadfast in leadership on the board when we had launched initiatives like the Urban Business Connection and even Accelerate Columbus programs and so many other things that come out of the Columbus Chamber. So thank you for your leadership. Looking forward to this new role and looking forward to the continued partnership. Any questions or comments from my colleagues? All right. Thank you again. Congratulations.
Thanks, and President Hardin and members of council. Thank you.
And President Hardin, that concludes my announcements.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Rosa de Padilla.
Thank you, Council President. I first wanted to acknowledge that this weekend we had a number of peaceful protests and marches in the city of Columbus, and I want to first thank all of our residents for continuing to use their First Amendment rights, for continuing to advocate for the things that they believe that are just and right. I want to also acknowledge CPD and our dialogue team that were at least at one of the marches that I was able to attend on Sunday that kept our folks safe, that closed down streets, and also made it so that there was an environment where people did not fear intimidation and did not fear raising their voices, but found a platform where they could advocate for the things that they wanted to advocate for. I always say it is but for the people that change happens, and it will always be but for the people that change happens. So thank you to our Columbus community. I also have one quick reminder that applications are live for the Commission on Immigrant and Refugee Affairs. We're looking to seat 15 commissioners. Applications close on February 16th. So if you go to columbus.gov/IRA Commission, you can find more information and you can apply. If folks have any questions, you can reach out to my office. My aides, Jessica Cazares or Maris Lemus, are happy to answer any questions or concerns that folks may have. That is all for me this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Beatty.
Yes, I'll just take a quick point of privilege here to thank Council President Hardin and my colleagues on City Council for your faith in me in appointing me to this position. I also would like to thank the City Council, the city employees. I myself, in my immediate family, have 5 members in my immediate family who have served the city, have worked for the city. And I know how hard your work is. We appreciate that, and I look forward to working with you. And then finally, I would like to thank all of the members of the community, friends, and others who reach out to me with congratulations and well wishes. Again, as I look forward to the next 11 months in office, I'm excited for the opportunity to work alongside all of you and identify key areas where I can make a difference in the city that I love. That's all for me.
Well, welcome again, Councilmember Beatty. Councilmember Day Alcar.
Nothing for me this evening. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Press Pro Tem.
Thank you, Council President. I do have a resolution on the agenda for tonight, resolution number 0021X-2025. That was to honor and celebrate the 2024 Bishop Watterson Eagles girls soccer team for being crowned state champs in Division II this year. Unfortunately, they were also not able to make it here this evening, so we're actually going to refer this back to committee so we can take that out to the team at the school. So with that, I move to refer this resolution 0021X-2025 back to committee.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Refer it back to committee.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have this time.
Thank you, sir. Councilmember Green. Councilmember Remy.
Thank you very much, Council President. I just want to remind everybody that the 2025 citywide cleanup will be April 5th with a kickoff at the Goodale Shelter House. For more information on this year's cleanup with Cleaner Columbus, please email cleanercolumbus@columbus.gov. We look forward to seeing everybody on April 5th. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Weiss is under the weather and not able to be here this evening. So I just want to remind everyone that tomorrow City Council is hosting our annual Black History Month celebration, and we'll be presenting the Poindexter Award recipients. This year's theme is African Americans in Labor. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. and the program starts at 6 p.m. Additionally, there's a minority business certification open house before the event at 4:30 p.m. with partners like the Columbus Urban League and Ohio Department of Development that will be facilitating with small businesses. So the event is free and open to the public. So we invite folks to stop by and be a part of that. And finally, as a reminder, City Council will not be meeting for the next 2 weeks as we will be back again on March 3rd. Are there any announcements or comments by my elected officials? Hearing none, are there any requests by members of council for the removal of an ordinance or resolution from the consent action portion of the agenda? Seeing none, may we now have the motion to waive reading of titles of third-day legislation on tonight's agenda? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Will the clerk now read into the record of the ordinance number of third-day legislation on tonight's agenda?
Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 165, 234, 288, 295, 296-2025. Public Service and Transportation Committee, Resolution 27X-2025. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinance 230-2025. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinances 26, 243, and 244-2025. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 122, 157, 212, 260, 269, 272-2025. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinance 423-2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We don't have any speakers on the first reading portion of the agenda. The following ordinance appear on our agenda as consent action. Will the clerk now read those into the record?
Resolution of Expression 20X-2025. Finance and Governance Committee, ordinances 109, 144, 149, 160, 216, 254, 280, 287, and 326-2025. Economic Development and Small and Minority Business Committee, ordinances 249, 404-2025. Public Service and Transportation Committee, ordinances 106, 211, and 340-2025. Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee, ordinance 104-2025. Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee, ordinance 148 and 358-2025. Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, ordinances 54, 77, 203, and 255-2025. Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, ordinances 143, 207, 300, and 302-2025. Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee, ordinances 84, 130, 156-2025. Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee, ordinances 248, 337, and 378-2025.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Also, no speakers on the consent portion of the agenda. So if there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, may I have a motion for approval of these items and as consent? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Akauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Consent agenda is passed with a noted exception. We'll now proceed with the second reading of 30-day postponed emergency legislation. The first committee to come before council is the Finance and Governance Committee chaired by Councilmember Bankston. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. The first ordinance we have is 3035-2024 to make appropriations for the 12 months ending December 31, 2025 for each of the several object classes for which the City of Columbus has to provide from the monies known to be in the treasury of said City of Columbus in the fund known as the General Fund during the said 12 months from the collection of all taxes and from other sources of revenue, the amount of $1,228,075,000, and to declare an emergency. As I mentioned last week, this ordinance, along with the following two ordinances, 3036 and 3037-2024, represent the city's annual operating budget and contains appropriation requests and amendments that council has worked with the administration and outside organizations to finalize. The ordinance specifically established the general fund budget, appropriations for departments, commissions, and offices of the City of Columbus for fiscal year 2025. The following ordinance, 3036-2024, establishes the budget appropriations for divisions and departments of the City of Columbus for fiscal year 2025 for funds other than the general fund, such as internal services, enterprise funds, and special revenue funds. The third operating budget ordinance, 3037-2024, establishes the budget appropriation for divisions and departments of the City of Columbus for fiscal year 2025 for selected funds other than the general fund or operating funds, such as the debt services fund, tax incentive funds, and the hotel motel tax fund. This year's budget process was not easy, and many tough decisions had to be made due to revenue shortfall and other circumstances. That said, I am proud of the result, and I am thankful to be a part of a body that does not shy away from difficult conversations, but instead leans into them. Once again, I would like to thank Council President Harden, our Chief of Staff, John Tanous, my council colleagues and their teams, Director Matt Erickson and his team in the Legislative Research Office, Mayor Ginther and his Chief of Staff, Elon Sims, as well as our Finance and Management Director, Chris Long, and the other department directors and their staff for working with my office to ensure that the budget we are voting on tonight reflects the needs of our community to the best of our ability. I would also like to say that this budget has shown us that there are ongoing conversations that need to be had, particularly around funding critical services and critical needs in our community. When we talk about our health and human services sector, when we talk about the homelessness shelter system, these are all critical infrastructure, human infrastructure needs that must be invested in. And I think that as we as a council have pushed as hard as we can to get certain priorities in to this budget, nearly doubling the budget for Community Shelter Board, continuing to invest in our promise to the young people of this community in the Columbus Promise Program. There's so much more that we have to do as a community. So I look forward to the conversations that we as a community will have going forward on how we shore up our health and human services sector, and also ensure that we continue to invest in the people of our Columbus as we grow. Because if we continue to grow for growth's sake, and it doesn't benefit all, then the growth is for naught. With that, I'll pause and see if there's any questions or comments from my colleagues. All right, seeing none, I first move as amended to submit. I first move to amend as submitted to the clerk.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Amended.
And now I move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 3036-2024 to make appropriations and transfers for the 12 months ending December 31, 2025 for other funds for various divisions, to authorize the city auditor to make transfers as may be necessary and to declare an emergency. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage as amended.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, we have ordinance 3037-2024 to make appropriations for the 12 months ending December 31, 2025 for selected other funds for various divisions, to authorize the city auditor to make transfers as may be necessary, and to declare an emergency. Seeing no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 218-2025 to authorize the city treasurer to renew its contract for banking services with J.P. Morgan Chase Bank, to authorize the expenditure of $1,469,000 from various funds within the city, and to declare an emergency. As mentioned in the title, this is a contract renewal for J.P. Morgan Chase Bank for banking services for the period April 1st, 2025 through March 31st, 2026. This contract was originally awarded in 2023 through a competitive RFP process to provide essential banking services, including lockbox, merchant processing, and other financial operations for city agencies. City merchants are transferring from Huntington Merchant Services to J.P. Morgan Chase and Paymentus for merchant processing. This transition is anticipated to be completed by the end of May 2025. Seeing no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 291-2025 to establish a new authorized strength ordinance for various divisions in the city of Columbus to be consistent with the adopted 2025 budget, to repeal ordinance 3273-2024, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance establishes authorized strength levels for city departments in alignment with the 2025 operating budget. Authorized strength represents the maximum number of personnel that city departments are authorized to maintain. Changes to authorized strength are necessary to adjust staffing levels in accordance with the budgetary appropriations. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage.
Second.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. For this next ordinance, I'm going to invite Brian Ross with Experience Columbus to come up as I read this ordinance, introducing ordinance 310-2025 to authorize the Finance and Management Director to enter into contract with Greater Columbus Convention and Visitors Bureau, doing business as Experience Columbus, for destination marketing services to promote and publicize the city of Columbus as a desirable location for conventions, trade shows, and similar events, to authorize the expenditure of $13,904,000 from the Hotel Motel Excise Tax Fund, and to declare an emergency. The hotel motel tax proceeds are collected by the city of Columbus for the purpose of promoting the city as a destination site for tourism and convention activities, and for fostering and sustaining a broad array of programming, including concerts, festivals, art exhibits, and vocational opportunities. This ordinance distributes these proceeds to Experience Columbus so that they can continue to invest in the promotion of the city as a tourism destination, as well as the programming that our community offers. Experience Columbus is our city's promoter, marketer, and seller of Columbus as a destination both regionally and nationally. With us today, we have our president and CEO, Mr. Brian Ross from Experience Columbus. Brian, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Chair Bankston. Hello, Council President Harden, members of City Council. Thank you for allowing us to come here and share some brief remarks that highlight our work from 2024 and looking into 2025. With me, I have Jessica Sullivan. She's our Director of Strategic Alliances, and I'm Brian Ross with Experience Columbus. Experience Columbus is the destination marketing organization for Columbus dedicated to increasing economic and human development, raising the awareness of the Columbus brand, and increasing the quality of life through the travel economy. As you know, tourism reaches every area of our community and is responsible for 1 in every 13 jobs in Franklin County. Visitor spending generates revenues that come from outside our community and stay here in our community and benefit our residents. This revenue saves each Franklin County household, on average, $1,500 a year in taxes. That revenue continues to grow. Our recent data shows that annually, visitors make more than 51 million trips to Columbus and Central Ohio, spending $8.2 billion. In 2024, we launched a new brand campaign, Yes, Columbus, that showcases our community and the accolades that our city has been quietly stacking up over the recent year, in the recent years. Data shows that those who saw our ads in 2024, there was a 49% arrival increase for visitors, and they stayed 39% longer than those who did not see the ads. So that means a lot of impact in our community. Condé Nast named Columbus a top 10 best big city in the U.S., and we were number 9. Number 10 was Miami. So, come on, who wants to go to Miami? Come to Columbus. Afar put Columbus on their global Where to Go in 2025 list, and we are one of only 4 U.S. cities. Columbus also has 3 James Beard semifinalists. Abishar Barua, who is up for Best Chef in the Great Lakes. Lawbird is up for Outstanding Bar. And Dan the Baker is up for Outstanding Bakery. Thanks to our partnership with City Council and Councilmember Bankston, we continued our minority business program, which supports small, minority-owned businesses in the community with a free, year-long Experience Columbus partnership and opportunities for marketing exposure. In 2024, Experience Columbus welcomed and serviced 338 meetings, conventions, and trade shows, and we booked 360 groups for future years. We welcomed and serviced AME Church, which was the largest group Columbus had ever contracted with, and provided $15 million in direct visitor spend to Columbus. One of those future groups, you may remember this, is American Society of Association Executives, ASAE. They chose Columbus for 2030. We were fortunate to get them in 2019, and unfortunately have taken a while to see the absolute economic impact because of the pandemic. However, since they met here in 2019 and year to date, we have been able to book an estimated $185 million through those groups that attended ASAE and chose Columbus. This year, some of the moments we are looking forward to include continuing to market Columbus as a must-visit destination for leisure travel, sporting events, meetings, and conventions through our Yes Columbus campaign. The first ever NHL Stadium Series event at Ohio Stadium is on March 1st. Remember that date because that's a major sporting weekend. It also overlaps the Arnold Sports Festival, so it will be crazy. And then, finally, 2 of the major conventions we will welcome and include the Society of Science in May. Their Science and Engineering Fair will welcome 2,000 finalists from more than 60 countries, regions, and territories to Columbus. And in late September, we will host the Forbes 30 Under 30 Summit, bringing national attention to the city as we welcome attendees from around the world to celebrate the publication's prestigious 30 Under 30 annual list. I'd like to close with a sincere thank you for your continued investment and support in our organization and in the local travel economy. For every $1 invested in Experience Columbus, $13.60 goes back into our community. We look forward to sharing updates throughout the year about how we are utilizing the funding provided for the betterment of Columbus and Franklin County.
Thank you, Director Ross. And I think it's important to point out that this is a portion of our bed tax. And so that the work that Experience Columbus does to bring trade shows, to bring tourism to our community also helps other sectors, our human services sector, the arts, affordable housing as well. And so that's unique because there are not a lot of other cities that can say that their tourism dollars are going to work for the benefit of the community. And I think I just got my monthly report from the bed tax from January, and it is up. So the work that you guys are doing is definitely paying off. I hear you on those James Beard Awards, but on this council, there's another award that is much higher, and that is the Emmanuel Remy Prestige Award, because he is our food and beverage coordinator. So I think he's been to all those restaurants, and so I think he will
Agree
confirm
with the
that
nominees.
Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues for Director Ross?
I will share that the January bed tax is actually from December's actual revenues. So the thing that really put us up was that Tennessee game that played here at Ohio State. That really helped in bed tax revenues. So sometimes we think, hey, we want to play and get a bye. I'm not so sure.
Yeah.
Personally, I'd like to have a home game, so we'll see how that goes.
Well, thank you again for all your work. And with that, Council President, I move for passage.
Thank you.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Pass.
Council President, I do have one piece of legislation, ordinance that I would like to introduce from the floor this evening. Is that okay?
Please.
Thank you. I want to introduce ordinance 0438-2025. It authorized the Director of the Department of Technology to enter into a contract modification with the Franklin County Educational Services Center of Central Ohio to align with ordinance number 0342-2025 and to declare an emergency. This ordinance is companion legislation to the ordinance that we passed just last week, ordinance 342-2025. As I mentioned in the title, it allows the Department of Technology to modify the contract with the Educational Services Center of Central Ohio for our digital equity initiative so that the modified contract reflects the reduced appropriation ordinance in ordinance 0342-2025. Again, when we talked about the nature of this budget, this was one of the ways that we were able to find some savings, if you will, to be able to take care of some expenses and priorities this year. And I do just want to put an emphasis and a reminder on this, that council is committed to continuing to support our countywide digital equity agenda and plans to replenish these contract dollars in future operating budgets. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committees this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee coming for council is the Public Service Transportation Committee. That committee is chaired by Councilman Barosa de Padilla. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. I have 3 ordinances today in our committee. First is 0116-2025 to amend the 2024 capital improvement budget to authorize the transfer of funds and appropriation within the Streets and Highways Bond Fund to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Service to enter into a contract modification with EMH&T in connection with the roadway Livingston Avenue 18th Street to Nelson project to authorize an expenditure from the Streets and Highways Bond Fund and the Water Bond Fund and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes a contract modification to provide the City of Columbus design improvements to the Livingston Avenue corridor from 18th Street to Nelson Road. The Livingston Avenue project is an exciting Safe Streets for All project. The city was successful and received an award of $12 million to complete the construction portion of the project. The award stipulates that the project must be completed 5 years, that's huge in roadway projects, by the way, from the time the grant agreement is executed. In order to meet this timeline, design of the project must be expedited, necessitating the need for an emergency legislation request. So, Assistant Director Wenzel, we're very excited about this project. We've worked on one portion of Livingston Avenue. This is the second portion of Livingston Avenue leading into downtown. Can you talk a little bit about what the timeline is for the project and what the community engagement will be around the project?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Barosa de Padilla, President Harden, members of council. Through this ordinance, we will move into and continue detailed design as it relates to the project. We expect that will be completed sometime fall of this year. In the meantime, in the spring, we will move into right-of-way acquisition associated with the project, and we will complete that usually within a 12 to 18-month period. We expect that utility relocations will start sometime in the fall of this year, and construction will kick off at the fall of next year, so that'll be 2026. We're expecting completion of the construction to happen by 2029. And like you mentioned, council member, this is all in accordance with the grant agreement that we have with the US DOT. So we're staying within those timelines. They're really tight, but we're going to meet those timelines. As far as community outreach, we'll continue to work with the community as we did as a part of the study, and as well as the first phase of the detailed design. That will continue all the way through construction too.
And I just wanted to thank the folks from the driving park community. I want to thank the Livingston Avenue Merchants Association, who have been advocates around this project, especially when we did the road diet on the other part of Livingston Avenue on the east side. I guess that would be the east portion of Livingston Avenue. And so really want to thank, because of their advocacy, that was part of what also the fact that we know that Livingston Avenue is part of, is one of the streets that we want to, a major arterial, that we want to tackle some of the challenges that we've had, especially around the high injury network. And so thinking about Vision Zero, our Safe Streets for All, this is in line with those projects. So I want to thank folks, and again, just encourage folks that as we have folks who advocate for the things that they want to see in their neighborhood, this is your advocacy and your tax dollars at work. So I also want to thank the department for securing these dollars so that we can move forward with this project. So thank you. Do I have any questions for my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Thank you. Next is ordinance 0213-2025 to authorize the Director of Finance and Management to enter into contract with Bobcat Enterprises Incorporated to purchase equipment to clear and maintain bike lanes and paths during snow and ice events, to authorize the waiver of the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $82,980.94 from the Municipal Motor Vehicle Tax Fund, contingent on passage of 0055-2025, and to declare an emergency. The division will use the equipment to clear and maintain bike lanes and paths during snow and ice events. This critical equipment allows individuals to continue to walk and cycle on city bike lanes and paths so that in the event of inclement weather, the facilities are still available for use. The equipment ensures that safety is prioritized for all city residents. I also just want to point out that our pilot along Broad Street helped to inform the decision-making that we made around some of the equipment, along with the other bike lanes that we have around the city, to ensure that, again, when there is inclement weather, that those bike lanes are usable. It is not just a collection for ice or for snow that we plow out of the way, but that residents can still use those lanes to get to work, to get to school, and to get to wherever they need to do to take care of their family and personal business. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Lastly, we have ordinance 0273-2025 to authorize the city attorney to file complaints in order to immediately appropriate and accept the remaining fee simple and lesser real estate necessary to timely complete the FRA Rich Street Signals project, to authorize an expenditure of $23,576 and to declare an emergency. The FRA Rich Street Signals project consists of the replacement of traffic signals at the intersection of Rich Street with 3rd Street, 4th Street, 5th Street, and Grant Avenue. This will include traffic signal improvements, sidewalk, curb, street lighting, and incidental improvements such as drainage, traffic control, and maintenance of traffic. The city must acquire a certain fee, simple, title, and lesser real estate located in the vicinity of downtown Columbus in order for DPS to timely complete the project. The city's acquisition of the real estate will help make, improve, or repair certain portions of the public right-of-way, which will be open to the public without charge. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you, Council President. That's all for me this evening.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Neighborhoods, Recreation, and Parks Committee chaired by Councilmember De Alcauer. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. The first ordinance we have in my committee this evening is Ordinance 100-2025 to authorize the Director of Recreation Parks to enter into contract with Michael Schuster Associates Incorporated, DBA MSA Design for the Northeast Indoor Aquatic Center Phase 1A project, to authorize the appropriation of $2 million within the Recreation Parks Permanent Improvement Fund, to authorize the transfer of $2 million within the Recreation Parks Permanent Improvement Fund, to authorize the amendment of the 2024 capital improvements budget, to authorize the expenditure of $2 million from the Recreation Parks Permanent Improvement Fund, and to declare an emergency. Columbus Recreation and Parks 2020 Aquatics Capital Improvement Plan identified the need for a new indoor aquatic facility in the city, as the community has expressed strong desire for additional opportunities that offer both recreation and swimming fundamentals education. Based on those recommendations, the department will be beginning to design a new Northeast Indoor Aquatic Center located on Agler Road. This will be a multi-phase collaboration between Recreation and Parks and Columbus City Schools, who are donating 11 acres for the project. The intent is for Columbus City Schools students to access this facility during and after the school day. Phase 1 will be the aquatic center, complete with an Olympic pool, therapy pool, diving pool, spectator space and community space, and athletic fields. Phase 2 of this project will include construction of the replacement of Howard Community Center and a joint athletic complex to be used with Columbus City Schools. And Phase 3 is the development of a school campus by Columbus City Schools. This design contract focuses on Phase 1. However, an overall site master plan is required to identify a phase development strategy for the entire 32.4-acre site. Emergency action is requested so that the design professionals can begin pursuing grant funding for the roadway improvements and allow the department to maximize opportunities for sponsorships once the preliminary plans are in place. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0299-2025 to authorize the city clerk to enter into a grant agreement with the Community Arts Project Incorporated, DBA the King Arts Complex, for the support of their 27th Annual Heritage Music Festival, and to authorize an appropriation and expenditure within the Neighborhood Initiatives Subfund. I move to refer this ordinance back to committee.
Clerk, please call the row.
Mr.
By voice.
Bangston? Yes. Ms. Barosa de Padilla? Yes. Mr. Beatty? Ms. De Alcauer?
Yes.
Mr. Dorans? Yes. Ms. Green? Yes. Mr. Remy? Yes. President Harden.
Yes, refer back to committee.
Thank you. That's all from me this evening, Council President.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Workforce, Education, and Labor Committee. That committee is chaired by President Pro Tem. President Pro Tem, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight we have ordinance 0124-2025 to authorize the Director of Department of Human Resources to enter a contract, service contract with Ohio Health Corporation for the public safety and health and physical fitness testing, to authorize expenditure of $1,460,000 for the general fund to pay for this contract and declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the Director of the Department of Human Resources to enter into a service contract with Ohio Health Corporation for the Division of Fire and the Division of Police in the amount of up to $1,460,000 for the Public Safety Health and Fitness Testing Contract. The Health and Fitness Safety Fitness Program is part of the current collective bargaining agreements between the City of Columbus and the Fraternal Order of Police, Capital City Lodge 9, and the City of Columbus International Association of Firefighters, Local 67. The intent of the program is to ensure overall general health and fitness of police officers and firefighters. Do my colleagues have any questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all I have in my committees at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next committee to come before council is the Health, Human Service, and Equity Committee, chaired by Councilmember Green. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Tonight in our Health, Human Services, and Equity Committee, we have one ordinance on second reading. It is Ordinance 0058-2025 to authorize the Board of Health to enter into a contract with King Business Interiors, Inc. to waive the competitive bidding requirements of Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $175,000 from the Health Department Special Revenue Fund to authorize the expenditure of $7,962.20 from the Health Grants Fund to pay the cost thereof and to declare an emergency. As you all know, Columbus Public Health has been working judiciously to complete a remodel of the fourth floor of their main building at 240 Parsons Avenue, and we are excited to share that the remodel is nearing completion, and so now they are in need of furnishing the new offices that will be located up there. The new Office of Data Modernization and Epidemiology. The waiver for competitive bidding is requested for this purchase as King Business Interiors is the only authorized distributor of Hayworth furniture for the City of Columbus, and there's also a need to ensure consistency in the products that are being used. Emergency legislation is required in order to provide immediate funding for this contract and to procure the needed services prior to price increases as part of their ongoing renovation project. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Second. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Thank you so much. That's all for me tonight.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee, chaired by Councilmember Remy. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Council President. Tonight I have 4 ordinances in public safety and criminal justice, the first being 191-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into contract with UKG Kronos Systems LLC for the Division of Fire for subscription software maintenance, support for telestaff, automated staffing software, and web staff subscription services, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $159,974.50 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. This service and support covers software from Kronos Systems, a web-based software solution designed specifically to help the Division of Fire manage its complex staffing assignments. This indispensable staffing solution has been utilized by the Division of Fire since 2006. Deputy Director Speaks, could you speak to the waiver of competitive bidding, please?
Councilmember, is simply a renewal of a software program that's been utilized for the last 19 years. So,
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Next, I have ordinance 201-2025 to authorize the appropriation of $1,766,292.76 from the unappropriated balance of the Law Enforcement Contraband Seizure Fund to the Division of Police to fund travel and training needs and purchase equipment, supplies, and services, and to declare an emergency. This ordinance authorizes the appropriation from the unappropriated balance of the federal and state law enforcement contraband seizure funds for the Division of Police. Funds are received from seized and forfeited property and are used solely for law enforcement purposes as specified in Ordinance 1850-85. These funds are used to purchase various services, supplies, and equipment. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Next, I have ordinance 274-2025 to authorize the Director of Department of Public Safety to amend the contract with Sound Thinking, Inc., formerly ShotSpotter, Inc., to continue the use of a gunfire detection, alert, and analysis program, to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $661,500 from the general fund, and to declare an emergency. These sensors connect to cloud-based data center infrastructure, providing a 24/7, 365-day-a-year gunfire monitoring service within a 9-square-mile radius of the installed sensor infrastructure. In addition to gunfire detection, the Sound Thinking service will notify law enforcement agencies of gunfire incidents and direct them to the precise location of gunfire. Deputy Director Speaks, could you speak to the waiver on this particular piece of legislation?
this is a system that we've been utilizing since 2019. The 9-mile area you speak of is the Hilltop, Linden, and the South Side. This has been an incredible tool to combat gun violence in our community.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Finally, I have ordinance 323, 2025, to authorize and direct the city attorney to settle the lawsuit captioned James A. Burke et al. Versus City of Columbus et al., United States District Court, case number 220 CV 6256, to authorize the expenditure of the sum of $1,800,000 in settlement of the lawsuit and to declare an emergency. I'm going to go ahead and throw this over to Assistant Attorney, City Attorney Rich Congolese to give us the background on this case.
Thank you. Council President Harden, Councilmember Remy, members of council. This case arose from a incident July 7, 2020, when Mr. Burke, who at that time was employed by the Department of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, went to a residence in the city of Columbus in an attempt to retrieve a gun. The suspect's wife was home at the time. She did not believe Mr. Burke was a federal official. She thought he was attempting to break into the house, so she called 911. CPD ended up responding to the 911 call. When they arrived at the scene, the two officers had their weapons drawn. They ordered Mr. Burke to get down on the ground. He refused. A third officer immediately showed up as well. Mr. Burke at that time did go ahead and get down onto the ground. While they were attempting to handcuff Mr. Burke, he was resisting, and so one of the officers used a taser to get him to comply. He ended up ultimately complying with being cuffed. He was placed in a cruiser. They, as they were searching him, they found his ATF credentials. They did determine ultimately that he was, in fact, a federal law enforcement officer. He filed a lawsuit as a result of those actions in district court here in Columbus. He had 5 separate allegations: an excessive use of force claim, an unlawful detention claim, an assault and battery claim, an intentional infliction of emotional distress claim, and what's commonly referred to as a Monell claim. That is a claim that the policies and procedures of the city of Columbus are unconstitutional. We went through and did discovery, filed summary judgment. Summary judgment was denied. Judge Graham, who was the presiding judge, set the case for trial. Attempted to negotiate a settlement. The negotiations at that point were unsuccessful. Judge Graham split the trial into a merits phase and a damages phase. Even while the trial was going on, we were still attempting to negotiate in good faith with the plaintiffs, unable to successfully do so. A jury eventually came back with an award of $1.6 million. So the city filed an appeal of the jury's award, but while the appeal was pending, we continued to negotiate with the plaintiffs, reaching an ultimate agreement of $1.8 million. So I know the question on your minds probably is, well, if the jury verdict was only 1.6, why are you settling the case for 1.8? That 1.6 was purely damages that went to the plaintiff. In addition to that, the plaintiff's attorneys would be entitled to an award of attorney's fees, as well as post-judgment interest and likely pre-judgment interest. So remember, this case was filed on July 7th, 2020. When you put all of those figures together, we were figuring we had an exposure of over $2.5 million, with those numbers increasing the longer it took to pay out because of the pre- and post-judgment interest. Plus, if we ended up actually briefing and filing and arguing the case in the Court of Appeals, the plaintiff's attorney's fees would go up as well. So when we put all of that stuff together, we figured 1.8 for a case of this magnitude with that award is incredibly reasonable. It is important for council to remember that the legal standard in the Sixth Circuit to overturn a jury verdict is that the Court of Appeals has to find that no reasonable jury could have concluded what this jury concluded. That is an incredibly high standard to meet. And so with all of that said and done, we believe that $1.8 million is still actually going to save the city money in this case.
Thank you, Assistant City Attorney. Now, one thing I didn't hear you say is what was his employment status with the ATF based on this incident?
He was employed with the ATF at that time. He has subsequently been terminated from the ATF.
Because of the way that he acted in this position?
Yeah, I believe that is correct.
Yeah. Obviously, it's a complicated case, not one that anyone particularly predicted would be the outcome in this case, but certainly I believe, Deputy Director, the standard operating procedures were reviewed and found them to be in line. Our officers followed correct protocol in this case.
Council, let me add a couple of key facts that have been talked about thus far. So this was a 911 call for a potential attempted burglary as well as impersonation of a police officer. This is a very strange case in that generally the ATF or a federal agency will call ahead of time to give you a heads up to the local entity that you're going to be at a certain address and whatever their action is. That did not occur in this case. This ATF agent was not wearing any identifying uniform, if you will. He did not have the jacket on that says ATF. He did not have a badge on that said ATF. He did not have a partner. Most importantly, he failed to follow the local uniform officer's direction, and that is also federal policy. Although, and let me be specific to your other question, he was brought up on termination charges, he settled with his employer on a disability claim. So he wasn't terminated, but they were in the process of terminating him before that settlement. In terms of policy, I agree. Our officers simply were not at fault in this case individually. I don't think our policies were at fault. I believe that if we tried this case 10 times before 10 different juries, quite frankly, I believe we would win 8 or 9 times. Obviously, in this case, we did not. I, who have lived with this case for a number of years, and the city attorneys who litigated this case, quite frankly, have lost a lot of sleep over this jury verdict. We realize that every dollar spent in litigation is a dollar less for you folks to do the wonderful work that you're doing in the community. Nevertheless, while we may not agree with the jury, it is our system of government. We must honor the jury and respect their decision. And we believe it is in the best interest of the city to settle in litigation at this point.
Thank you very much, Deputy Director. Do any of my colleagues have any questions or comments this evening? Councilmember Beatty.
Yes. What was the race and gender of the ATF officer?
He was white.
He, okay. Yeah. And this was a 1983 claim?
Correct.
Okay. And could you give a little more explanation as to the Melton Doctrine?
The Melton Doctrine?
The Manel Doctrine.
Oh, the Manel.
Yeah.
So the Manel Doctrine is a plaintiff would have to show a policy, custom, or procedure by which a government violated his rights. Here, the Manel claim wasn't specific. Rather, it was the claim against the individual officers as opposed to the city in general. I believe the city was dismissed on summary judgment, if I recall.
Oh, it was
the facts.
dismissed?
The city was.
Okay.
But we have a duty under 274407 to represent and then indemnify our employees. So I think the Manel claim was dismissed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Bankston.
And I don't know if this is for the city attorney or for our deputy director. So can you just talk to me specifically about what made your decision to go to court? I mean, this body, we take, I think, settlements all the time that don't even make it to court. So what in this particular case made us think that we could go to court and win? Because we could be talking about a lower number here today.
And I'll take it, and then Director Speaks can fill in. Settlement and negotiation is very much an art, not a science. And so what our office does when it is attempting to look at exposure in cases is, it looks at the plaintiff, it looks at the types of damages that have been incurred. It looks at jury verdict reports. So we can see in the Southern District of Ohio, for example, what have cases generally settled for? What have juries generally come back and awarded? And so when we take all of that stuff into consideration, we take a look at how much the attorneys have claimed to have been entitled to up at that point. And, we make an educated guess. If we view this case as generally favorable, we are going to look at the low end of those numbers. If we look at cases as generally unfavorable, we'll be looking at the higher end of those numbers. There just was not a meeting of the minds between the attorneys on our staff, our client, the attorneys on the plaintiff's side, and the plaintiff as far as what the case was worth. We didn't believe that they were entitled to the numbers that they were talking about. They thought that our numbers were completely off. And so that's when cases go to trial. We, if we can meet in the middle, we settle cases. If we can't, we go to trial. This was a case that the numbers between the two sides were just too far off to reach a middle ground. And so the jury ended up coming back with an award that, as Director Speaks said, quite frankly, astonished the trial team and the department.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much, Assistant City Attorney and Deputy Director. With no further questions, again, a reminder that this is a post-settlement or post-trial settlement, which was primarily the court-ordered jury award. So if there are no further questions, I'll move for passage.
Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
And that is all I have in Public Safety and Criminal Justice Committee this evening. With your permission, Council President, I'd like to move on to Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee.
Please.
I have three ordinances this evening in the Public Utilities and Sustainability Committee. The first is 140-2025 to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into a professional engineering services contract modification with Brown and Caldwell, Ohio for the Southerly Wastewater Treatment Plant Receiving and Bioengineer Energy Utilization Facility Project, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to accept and enter into a loan agreement with the Ohio Water Development Authority to authorize the appropriation of and transfer of funds from the Sanitary Sewer Reserve Fund to the Sanitary Fresh Water Market Rate Fund, to authorize the appropriation of funds within the Sanitary Fresh Water Market Rate Fund, to authorize the expenditure of up to $14,914,610.09 from the Sanitary Fresh Water Market Rate Fund to pay for the project and to declare an emergency. This modification partially funds services for Step 3 services during construction that include submittal, review and answering of requests for information, preparation and review of requests for proposals, and other engineering support projects to ensure a successful construction project. This phase of the project is anticipated to end in September 2031. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorance Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Next, I have Ordinance 186-2025 to authorize the Director of Public Utilities to modify and increase a contract with Census USA, Inc. for ongoing software, hardware, and maintenance of the system for the Enhanced Meter Project for the City of Columbus Division of Water, to authorize the expenditure of $1,200,000 for the Water Operating Fund, and to waive the competitive bidding provisions of the City Code. The Enhanced Meter Project, CIP, will replace outdated and underperforming meters, install radio transmitting infrastructure to allow wireless readings to be relayed to the billing software at a central location, and provide an environmentally efficient way to read meters. This contract is for the ongoing operation and maintenance of the system and software to ensure the system implemented as part of the MP is usable. Are there any questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
And finally, I have 277, 2025, to authorize the Director of the Department of Public Utilities to enter into construction contract modifications with Travco Construction, Inc. and John Aramo and Sons, Inc. for the 2024 water main repairs project, to authorize an amendment of the 2024 capital improvement budget, to authorize a transfer of cash and appropriation between projects within the Water Bond Fund, to authorize the expenditure of up to $1,400,000 for the project, and to declare an emergency. These contracts provide assistance to our water line maintenance crews in completing water main break repairs in a timely manner should the number of breaks exceed our normal maintenance capacities. These additional funds are being added to the original contract amounts due to higher than anticipated breaks occurring, resulting in a higher than anticipated need for outside assistance in making repairs. The scope of work for the contract is not changing. Are there any questions from my colleagues this evening? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
And that is all I have in public utilities and sustainability. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next committee to come before council is the Housing, Homelessness, and Building Committee. I chair that committee. I have ordinance 0206-2025 to authorize the Director of Development to establish a service contract with Reeves Towing and Recovery LLC for assigned installation and towing services program, and to waive the competitive bidding requirements of Columbus City Code, to authorize the expenditure of $20,000 and to declare an emergency. This legislation maintains towing services and no parking signage associated with land bank properties. If there are no questions or comments, I move for passage. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed. We'll now go to the Rules and Policy Committee. The final ordinance that we have tonight is 0162-2025. Is to supplement the Columbus Zoning Code, Title 33, by amending or adding various code sections for land uses and definitions associated with the Ohio Division of Cannabis Control, the General Offenses Code, Title 23, and the Fire Prevention Code, Title 25, to repeal the corresponding existing city code provisions and to repeal sections 3389-09 and 3389.115, which require a special permit from Board of Zoning Adjustment for certain uses. This legislation makes minor changes to our zoning code to bring it into alignment with the Ohio Revised Code following the passage of the recreational cannabis legalization ballot initiative in 2023. Specifically, this repeals the city's special permit requirements for cannabis dispensaries to fall in line with the regulations of the Ohio Division of Cannabis Control. Additionally, this ordinance also includes a small technical fix to repeal a special permit requirement for slaughterhouses. If there are no questions or comments from my colleagues, I move for passage. Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Pass. Seeing no further business coming before council, is this motion to adjourn? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Coward, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned. We have one non-agenda speaker. That is Mr. Regular meeting number 9 will now come to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcowar, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Can I get a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcowar, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Are there any additions or corrections to the journal? Hearing none, the journal is approved. We will now go to the zoning committee. Councilmember Dorrance chairs that committee, and all members serve on it. Councilmember, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Council President. Before we begin tonight's zoning agenda, as always, allow me to briefly explain our current rules pertaining to speaking for our councils on rezonings and variances. We only hear staff presentation of ordinance that have a disapproval from a recommending body, or if we have a public speaker signed to speak against an ordinance. We permit 3 speakers on each side of an ordinance, 3 opponents, 3 proponents. We ask that those speakers limit their remarks to 3 minutes per the standard rules of City Council. All speakers in the council variance, including city staff, area commissioners, applicants, and members of the public, will be sworn in before they give testimony. Representatives in area commission are always able to speak on an ordinance. You do not need to fill out a speaker slip, but we do ask you alert city staff of your intentions to speak at this hearing. We do have 1 public speaker slip filled out for this evening. On the advice of the city attorney's office, so I'll now swear in city staff. Please stand and raise your right hand and be sworn in. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give should be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer and pains the penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do. I do. Thank you. Please let the record reflect that Tim Dietrich from the Department of Building and Zoning Services and Dan Blushman from Division of Traffic Management have been sworn in. So first, we have ordinance 2056-2025 to rezone 4600 Lakehurst Court, being 17.2 plus acres located in the southeast corner of Lakehurst Court and Emerald Parkway, from LC2 Limited Commercial District to LC4 Limited Commercial District to ARO Apartment Office District. This site consists of 1 undeveloped parcel with an office park, and the requested rezoning will allow a mixed-use development. Proposal is consistent with the city's objective to provide more housing, also while preserving office uses for employment opportunities for these new residents. Proposal is approved from City Staff, Development Commission, and the Hayden Run West Civic Association. Do my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcowar, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Pass.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0263-2025 to rezone 106 West Castle Road, being 5.6 plus 4 acres located in the western terminus of West Castle Road, from SR Suburban Residential District to AR1 Apartment Residential District. The site consists of 6 parcels, 5 of which are undeveloped. The 6th is developed with an eating and drinking establishment. The requested rezoning will allow for a 144-unit apartment complex in this location. The proposal is approved from City Staff, Development Commission, and the Far South Area Commission. Do my colleagues have questions or comments? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcowar, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0266-2025 to rezone 1429 Schrock Road, being 0.72 plus acres located in the southeast corner of Schrock Road and Ambleside Drive, from C4 Commercial District and C5 Commercial District to LC4 Limited Commercial District. Site is developed with a used car lot and automotive repair facility in the C4 Commercial and C5 Commercial District, and the requested rezoning will bring the site under 1 zoning district and allow limited commercial uses at this location. Proposal is approved from City Staff, Development Commission, and the Northland Community Council. Any questions, colleagues? Seeing none, I move for passage.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Day, Alcowar, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Thank you. Next, we move into the council variances portion of our agenda. First, we have ordinance 2170-2024 to grant a variance provisions of section 3332.037 R2F Residential District, 331.25 maneuvering, 3312.29 parking space, 3312.49C required parking, and 3332.05 A4 area district lot width requirements, 3332.14 R2 area district requirements, and 3332.19 fronting, 3332.25 maximum side yard required, and 3332.26 minimum side yard permitted, and 3332.27 rear yard of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 41 South Cypress Avenue to allow a 2-unit dwelling on 1 lot with reduced development standards in the R2F residential district. This site consists of 1 parcel developed with a single-unit dwelling. The requested council use variance will legitimize and allow the completion of a construction of a detached garage with a single-unit dwelling above, also known as a carriage house. A council variance is required because the current district allows 1 single or 1 2-unit dwelling, but does not allow 2-unit dwellings on 1 lot. The request includes variances in maneuvering, parking space, lot width, lot area, fronting, side yard, rear yard, and reduced parking from 4 spaces to 2 provided spaces. The proposal is approved from city staff, but a unanimous disapproval from the Franklin Area Commission because council's considerations request for area variances is dependent on council finding that a unique hardship exists to support the request for a use variance. We will hear testimony on the request for the use variance first. As a reminder, under City Code, before authorizing any variance, City Council must first determine that such a variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air to the adjacent property, unreasonably increase the congestion of public streets, increase the danger of fires, endanger the public safety, unreasonably diminish or impair established property values within the surrounding area, or in any other respect impair the public health, safety, comfort, morals, or welfare of the inhabitants of the city. Additionally, the following criteria must be met by each applicant that seeks a use variance to permit land uses for purposes other than those allowed in the district as prescribed by the relevant regulation. To obtain a use variance, an applicant must demonstrate an undue hardship, which the City Code describes as taking into consideration if such use would not adversely affect the surrounding property or surrounding neighborhood, and if council is satisfied that granting such a variance would alleviate some hardship or difficulty which warrants a variance from the comprehensive plan. First, we will hear from the staff report with the representatives of the Department of Building and Zoning Services. Mr. Dietrich, floor is yours.
President Harden, Chair Dorans, members of council, 41 South Cypress Avenue consists of one parcel developed with a single unit dwelling in the R2F residential district. The property has received a working without permit building order violation regarding construction of a rear dwelling unit over a detached garage, also known as a carriage house. The requested council variance will legitimize and allow completion of construction of said carriage house, along with conforming conditions for the existing single unit dwelling, such as lot size, lot width, and minimum side yard. The property is located within the planning boundaries of the West Franklin Plan, which recommends medium to high density residential land uses at this location and includes adoption of citywide Columbus planning policies design guidelines. Staff supports the request as the addition of a carriage house to this property is consistent with the plan's land use recommendation for medium to high density residential uses, is consistent with the existing residential development pattern of the neighborhood, and will not add an incompatible use to the area, and therefore City Department's recommendation is for approval.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. Any questions or comments from the department this time? Seeing none, I'm going to invite the applicant and our architect, Brenda Parker. So the applicant is Mr. Jason Huggard, and the architect is Miss Brenda Parker. Welcome to council. Once you both get up here, I'm going to swear you in real quick since this one's a variance. Please raise your hand. Thank you. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer under pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. Floor is yours.
Yes, hello. My name is Jason. I'm the owner of the property. When I bought the property, it was already there, and it was falling. It was molded and falling off. All I did, since me and my wife wanted to move back to the neighborhood, the guy that I hired, he started building. He said these walls got to come down, and all he did was put new walls up and everything, and then he ran off on the property. Then I hired Miss Brenda to do everything. Well, they came in and stopped me and said I was doing it without a permit, but I had permits to fix the property up. I didn't know I needed building permits for the back part. And then that's when I hired Brenda and them to get everything situated through the city for me to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Huggard.
So I came in midway through the project to help get the project moving in the right direction. This property had an existing carriage house. It had a vaulted or a gabled structure. The contractor, was basically replacing the walls because it was so deteriorated that it was in need of repair. He didn't put it back exactly as it was before. He put a shed roof on the structure instead of the initial gable. When I came in, a lot of work has already been implemented. A lot of framing is in place, and it's hard to tear down something that someone has already invested quite a bit of money and time into. When I did come in, I did try to fix up the plan a little bit to make it a little bit more compatible with the proper way to do these carriage houses. So we added in 2 car spaces, one for the primary house and one for the dwelling above the garage. And we kind of reconfigured to make it a really great one-bedroom apartment with a separate entrance from the alley. So it supports Jason's family perfectly. He has a daughter that's just starting college that is looking to stay at home but have her independence. So she would be living in the carriage house, and the family, Jason and his wife, would be living in the main house. So we're asking for kind of forgiveness to be able to save the structure as is. So the challenge was they built it right where it was, which violated the side yards. It's too close to the alley. But because it was existing, you know, that's kind of where it gets a little.
It was just built on the frame. We didn't
Yeah.
go out, we didn't go that, we just put new walls up to go upwards.
Thank you. Questions from colleagues at this time? Councilmember Beatty.
Could the clerk or the technology individual put the pictures back up once again, now that I've heard testimony?
Can you, I'm sorry, Chair. Do you have a question, Councilmember?
No, go ahead.
Can you talk about you talked about how close it is to the alley? Because I think that was one of the things that was in question, was just the clearance of the alley and whether it was safe or not in terms of moving. Because is this alley, what moves in that alley? Is it cars? Is it trash? You know, like some of our trash trucks, et cetera? Chair, do we
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. And is the clearance, is that part of the issue, is that it is too close to?
That is one of the requested variances, is regarding how close it is to the alley. So to the, I think, point from both the applicant and his representative, that is one of the key issues that's in play here.
Correct. So I think it's the maneuvering to get the
Yeah.
cars in and out of the garage. You're supposed to have 20 feet, and we only have 17 feet. So it'll be, you know, they'll have to kind of do a 3-point turn, you know, kind of pull in, back out to get into the garage. It is feasible. It's not, it's just not, the city doesn't meet the city code.
And so I want to ask a couple of questions, and these are more legal in nature, so I apologize if they seem a little bit odd. And I certainly sympathize with the applicant here, who's, you know, trying to do the best he can with sort of what he inherited, you know, here. So as far as like from the property that's located, right? So when we ask the question of a use variance here, and sort of all the underlying you know, additional code variances that have been requested here. So there's additional yard between the primary residence and the sort of half-built or half-constructed structure, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from a hardship standpoint, you know, if this structure didn't exist right now, and you wanted to build a carriage house, you could do that on this property while avoiding, you know, the majority of these variances that are in front of us, correct?
Correct. It would just be the standard variances. There's a horde of variances that come with these carriage houses.
Sure.
So really, we would be able to solve the side yard setback, the maneuvering, but everything else would still be requested.
Okay. And again, just to sort of, again, put these variants in sort of legal context. So here, when the question from the use standpoint is whether or not there is or is not a hardship. And I just want to give you all an opportunity to speak towards what you see as the hardship here as it relates to this request.
So the hardship in coming from an architecture standpoint is there was an existing structure in this exact footprint. Jason thought, and I think the person renovating, that it would be grandfathered in. So we could have renovated that carriage house, and the structure could stay. You know, just kind of fixed it up. So that's where I feel like the hardship is. If there was no existing structure and they built this non-compliant, I would say, hey, that's, you know, too bad. But they just replaced the walls.
Okay. Councilmember Beatty?
Could you speak to the amount of funds that have been expended by the gentleman up to this point, and it can be an approximate number?
Like invested into the.
Yes, please.
The whole property or just that property?
Well, that part that we're,
Well, counting what the guy ran off with and everything, probably around 40 to 60. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so.
Any other questions from council members for the applicant or their representative? Thank you. We do have other public speakers, so I will allow you to come back up afterwards, after we go through those two. Mr. Congolese from the City Attorney's Office, could you speak to, so again, as I mentioned in my comments, we have both the use variance and then we have code variances from there. And if this council doesn't pass the use variance, we don't get to the other ones. And typically the use variance is focused on that hardship. So I just asked the applicants to sort of identify from their view what this hardship is. And I wonder if you could weigh in generally how to view this from a legal standpoint of what constitutes that hardship or what council should take into consideration here.
Sure. So as you said, we are looking here at a use variance, which under city code means we have to look if such use will not adversely affect the surrounding property or surrounding neighborhood. So that's kind of step one, taking a look at that. And if members of council are satisfied that granting such variance will relieve some hardship or difficulty that warrants a variance from the comprehensive plan. So those basically, that is the legal structure under which council is operating. So each member of council needs to basically ask themselves those two questions. One, is there a adverse effect on the surrounding property if you grant this? And two, does granting a use variance here alleviate hardship to some type of a hardship or difficulty to the owner as it relates to the comprehensive plan?
Thank you. We do have other speakers on this one. So we have Mr. Jack Chambers, the chair of the Franklin Area Commission. So Mr. Chambers, welcome back to council. Good to see you again. And I will swear you in when you get to the podium, but welcome back to council, sir.
To clarify, I'm not the chair of the area commission, I'm the chair of the zoning.
Zoning, thank you. Appreciate the clarification. Would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth that you shall answer under pain of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Floor is yours, sir.
The area commission found no hardship in this case. The owner proceeded without permits or code regulations in the construction of this new two-story rear building, dwelling number 2, that introduced living quarters. Using the rogue contract to explain away the irregular rear structure we found unacceptable, Ms. Parker stated that the rear building is not even stable enough to support a living space without severe modifications. Once flagged, the work still continued on 41 South Cypress despite the stop work order on the property. In regards to the individual variances, the maneuverability in the alleyway, moving from 20 feet to 17 feet, the rear building sits on the alley without an apron and correct setback, making it a nuisance to get into parking and prone to being hit by vehicles and passing in the alley. My Civic didn't fit. So it's tight. In regards to reducing the parking, there is not enough parking for 2 dwelling units for just 1 dwelling. Parking is a premium on South Cypress as elsewhere in Franklinton. Potentially, the unit could be sold separately if this is allowed to stand. Therefore, the 1 spot per single family doesn't really work in that favor. In regards to reducing the lot size to require 2 dwellings, no, the rear building is out of compliance and substandard for living space. In regards to allowing 2 dwellings on a single family lot, no, rejected the rear building. Allowing dwelling 2 in front of the alley, no, it was also rejected. To reduce the sum yards of dwelling 2, no, it was rejected for the rear building. It is nearly on the neighbor's property line at 9 feet, not the 3, or 9 inches, not the 3 feet required, and prohibits walking around the building for access and emergency services. To reduce the side yard widths for the single-family home dwelling number 1, no, the house is currently out of compliance as it was built before the code was in place. Historically, the Franklin Area Commission has not granted this variance. It would apply if the home was destroyed and had to be rebuilt. If destroyed, insurance would allot money to rebuild it that complies with current zoning. to reduce the sum yards of the dwelling number 2 from 3 feet to 9 inches. No, rejected for the rear building. In regards to reducing the backyard requirement for dwelling number 2 from 988 square feet to 0, no, rejected. And then to increase the detached garage height from 15 feet to 17 feet, no, that was also rejected by the area commission. We did approve one of these, section 3332.05, to acknowledge that the lot is not 50 feet wide, but 30 feet wide, as it is common throughout Franklinton and other historic neighborhoods.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers. Any questions from council members for the area commission representative? Councilmember Green.
I'm just curious, I think the area commission itself is interested in innovative solutions, like things like carriage houses potentially, right? So, I mean, this is really just a matter of reflecting safety issues and concerns in the alley based on the discussions that you guys had.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of concerns with just the safety and the placement of the building. The rear building only has one exit in the garage, no outside exits. Franklin has had horrific fire death statistics. We prefer 2 exits on any dwelling to avoid injury and death, forcing the residents to jump from a second-story window. I love innovative stuff. I just don't like things that are built improperly without permits and then continue to be built without the permission of council, city, zoning, everyone.
Any other questions from council members for the area commission?
Just to be clear, you said there was a stop build?
Stop work order put and work continued, according to my records.
Councilmember Rosa de Padilla.
Also, so to be clear, what was the use of the carriage house before? Was it used for or zoned for housing, or was it?
It looked more like, I mean, I can only go far back in terms of what I can see historically with the photos. It looked more just like a storage space. It was more, I don't think anyone was living in it.
So it was more for storage or car, not for living?
Councilmember.
Garage door.
Okay.
Councilmember, I believe Mr. Dietrich from Department of Building Services may have some information on that point.
So the city of Columbus, we looked through our permit history and we could not find evidence of a dwelling in that particular structure. We had it as being a framed garage.
Got it.
But there were no garage doors accessing the alleyway. And you could not get a car in that turn from its current position.
So to clarify that, Mr. Dietrich, so while there was no, the city does not have a record of this structure having been used as a dwelling unit of any sort. So and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, I think to Councilmember Barosa de Padilla's point is regarding, basically, is this a shed or something like that that was then sort of expanded upon in this situation? And I guess we're trying to draw some inferences around, hey, trying to get to the point of what hardships here exist or don't exist. Certainly, it's more of a hardship if, in fact, this was a, I think the applicant was mentioning sort of being grandfathered in or the like. That seems to be a different case than if this was a shed or storage space or something of the like, and then that use is attempted to be changed by, some type of action by, property owner.
Right. So our records only indicated that this building was ever a garage. Now, there are recent Google Street Views where there is no garage door on the alley, but that doesn't mean there wasn't one 20, 40, 60 years ago. But as far as our records were showing us, this was a garage, and we did not have record of a dwelling in this building.
Thank you, Mr. Dietrich. Councilmember, does that get to your question? Thank you. Other questions from council members for the area commission?
I think my question might be more pointed for staff, but I guess it is a question to the area commission, if my other question is correct. So looking at the building as is, if someone was to purchase this and just renovate it as is, because it is in the same footprint, I understand that it is 2 stories versus a pitched roof, but would there be a concern from the area commission if there was a building permit issued for renovation, or would that even come to you all? I'm not sure how that would work.
So, council members, so because they're requesting, there was never a variance granted for a dwelling unit here, which is, I think, and Mr. Dietrich, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. So council would have to have granted a variance for this to been allowed to be used as a dwelling unit of sort. So when we talk about from a renovation to new construction or something, either one of those things would have had to come before this body at some point for that type of variance because of the type of zoning that currently is on that parcel. For them to be able to construct anything that would allow habitable space there would have required a action of council for that to occur. Whether or not you were renovating a structure or building it out of the ground new.
Got it.
I don't know if that was getting to your question or not.
It reached the area commission after work had already been in process and the stop work order had been issued, I believe.
Okay. Can the city staff confirm that there was a work stop order? Confirmed.
That's correct. There was a stop work violation order issued by the Department of Building and Zoning Services. I believe it was in 2023.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Conglin from City Attorney's Office.
Thank you. The one thing that I did want to address in part in response to Councilmember Bankston's question is this could have been a non-conforming use if it were built to the exact specifications of the prior building. My understanding is that it has not been built to the exact same specifications because they have expanded square footage. And I think city staff actually may be able to explain what and how.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Chambers? I'm certainly happy to give space to council members to ask additional questions of the department or the city attorney before the next public speaker, if folks would like. We do have one additional public speaker in addition to Mr. Chambers. So any other questions for Mr. Chambers before I let him go? Great. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it. Again, did want to pause and see, before our next public speaker, do council members have any additional questions for the department or for the city attorney at this point? Seeing none, I will invite the next public speaker to come before council, Ms. Tina Cooper. Ms. Cooper, welcome to council. I'm going to swear you in real quick before you give your comments, if that's okay. Sorry. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, nothing but the truth, that you shall answer to pains of penalty of perjury? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Floor is yours, ma'am.
My name is Tina Cooper, a resident of Franklinton for over 60 years. I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak before the council on ordinance. I got the ordinance number 2170-2025. I'm here in regards to 41 South Cypress Avenue, Columbus, Ohio, 43222. This property has had a work stoppage on it for over 2 years until recently it was lifted for the main house. There is what they are calling a carriage house in the back, which had and still has no work order. During no work order on the carriage house, they still proceeded working on the carriage house. This carriage house is built within 12 inches plus or minus from the property line and does not allow for property ingress and egress to the alley to properly take care of the trash and recycled containers to be taken out to the alley. I was here at City Council a few years ago speaking before you about this property to make it a duplex, and it was turned down by City Council due to no additional parking and violence at the property. It has since been changed to a 2 single-unit, 3-unit lot, and now it wants to make a 2 single lot, and was not notified of the changes in order to speak on this property. The parking is already tight most of the time. I am against this change. I have seen in the neighborhood where some of the rental properties have drawn in violence. I have concerns about the property, especially with a no-stop order not to work on the property, and it was still worked on. If they defy that, who is to say that the permit that they request will be followed through with what would be allowed? I'm afraid that this will not be made into a 3-unit lot. The carriage house was not on the initial permit, but yet it was built where an existing garage was torn down, which was not on the original permit. The Franklinton Area Commission had voted to have it demolished due to all the issues with the building, property clearance, alley clearance, and I questioned the clearance of the electrical. And there was an existing garage there, and it was torn completely down to the foundation.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Questions from council members from Ms. Cooper at this time? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I did want to invite both the applicant and his architect and representative back to the podium for any rebuttal they'd like to make.
Chair, can I just get clarification on that last point?
Sure.
Maybe I missed it in the pre-telling. Was there an existing building there and they just renovated it, or was it torn to the ground and they built something up?
Mr. Dietrich, do we have information pertaining to that? I know there was a structure on this parcel. I think one of the issues that the applicant, and don't let me speak for you, but from my understanding is that whatever structure that was fell into significant disrepair over the years. So whenever the additional work started, whatever, I think it may be generous to say there was a structure there of sorts. But Mr. Dietrich, I don't know if there's additional information the city has on this.
Yeah, there was a structure there. Again, I think the issue here is actually what was the use of that structure. And again, the city doesn't have record of it being any type of dwelling unit, whether that was a garage with habitable space above or habitable space within. So whether or not it's the exact footprint, I'm not exactly sure, but it was a garage. There was a building there.
But our witness just said that it was torn down to the ground. That's not what we see that's not what you see from the city's perspective.
We would not have a record.
We would have known.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's one of the
Again,
difficult.
they were doing work without permits, so that's part of the issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Council President, just for clarification, to reemphasize Mr. Dietrich's point, so again, the first part of what's before us is the question of the use variance. And to Mr. Dietrich's direct point, because this was a garage or a garage-like structure before, the question is whether or not there is a hardship to allow that structure or whatever the thing was or how disrepair it was, to allow that to go from a storage, garage, et cetera, to a dwelling unit. That's sort of the central question with the first part of the use variance. But with that preamble, I apologize for having some discussion on this. I want to give space to the applicant as representative to speak to anything that they'd like to at this point.
Okay. When I first started, I pulled permits for the property. I'm sorry. When I first bought the property, I pulled permits for the property to work. There was building permits and everything, and we was working on it. And then I didn't know that we had to have a variance for the back part. We was already working on the front part. When the people came in and stopped me and said I needed a building permit for the back, I completely stopped. And I went back down there. I tried with another architect, couldn't get it going through. And then when I hired her, she got it to go through. And they let me continue working on the front part. So I did not work on that place when they stopped me. I went down to the city and got everything approved. It was already existing. It just, the walls was falling apart. It was real nasty. If I knew how to get a variance or anything of that sort, I would have went through the steps in the process. This was going to be for me and my wife and my daughter. This wasn't going to be no rental. My daughter goes to the school right on Chicago. It's Franklinton Prep. And so, yeah, I kind of lost my words, but yeah, I didn't work on it after they stopped me. I went through the right procedures I was supposed to go through. And yeah, as far as renting it out, nobody ever asked me what I was going to do with it. Some people in the neighborhood might think I was renting on me and my wife, and my daughter was going to move down there and have it so she can have her space and everything. I was going to sell my other house I live in. And it was already existing. It wasn't torn down. It just was raggedy. And I figured, okay, and the guy told me, we got the building permits. He could pull it up. I had one. When they stopped me, I had building permits and everything. They stopped me because I didn't have the variance or whatever it was. And then I didn't touch it. And then when she came in, she got me approved to start back on the front house, but I had to wait on this. If they could pull the pictures up of the day they stopped me, they will see it's exactly like the way it is. And that, it does have, the old one had garage doors on it. And when you go into it, it had an upstairs bathroom, plumbing, everything ran to the thing.
So I think this started out to be a kind of a historic carriage house, and that's why there isn't a record of its construction. I'm actually working on a similar project in Clintonville where she was taking the second floor and converting it into a dwelling unit. This was kind of the same idea, except since it was in such disrepair, the contractor went ahead and rebuilt the walls in the same location. And then, like I said, kind of when they did the second floor walls for the new, to replace them, they did a different style of roof on it to kind of keep it simple. And they didn't realize that they were violating the zoning code on this. So when I came into the project, I was like, okay, you know, that carriage house is gonna take a long time to get on the right track, but let's get you back moving on the house, which is a single-family house. I think it originally was a duplex, and he converted it back to single-family. So he's been working on that, and that's coming together. So this is it's kind of a gray area, right? Because had he not replaced the walls, it would have been a renovation. We still would have had the use variance to make that second floor legal per the zoning code. He went a little bit far in changing the roof style, but he could have just renovated what was there as well, and asked for the use variance. So that's where I feel like, you know, this structure's been here a very long time, and it hasn't been run into in the alley. It's been able to be utilized. Like I said, if they had built this in the wrong place as new construction, it would be a problem. But because this building has been there for a very long time, it's kind of a renovation situation.
And I didn't want to have it as a separate property. I wanted it as one property, but whenever they said I was building, I had to put in for an address for itself. And I thought it was all one property. It ain't like I wanted to separate it and sell it separate or anything like that. I thought it was all one property. But I guess since I was working on it without the right building permits or whatever, they wanted me to get its own address. So I'm not the one that wanted to split it. I wanted it as one, like a carriage house.
Other questions for the applicant or the representative at this time? Councilmember Bankston.
Just a clarification. You said that a contractor ran off. So you purchased this property before it was renovated, or was it like already being renovated and then you purchased it, or?
I purchased it when it was beat down. It had
Okay.
bullet holes in it. It took 7 dumpsters to clean this thing out. I mean, it was a nuisance house. I bought the house, and when I was hiring, I was bringing people in, like contractors, to give me deals, and I seen a guy working on a house down the street, was looking real nice. I called him in, he was giving me the best deals, had a work scope, everything. He even drew out plans that got me passed downtown. So I'm working with him, and he's doing all this work, and he's like, well, we can build this right here, but it has to go up a little bit higher, to 7 feet or something at the top. And he said these walls, I mean, the thing was flimsy. You could probably run it, just knock it down. And he was like, well, we got the building plans. Now, I went ahead with it because I thought since he had all this going on that he knew what he was talking about. He was doing good work. He started building it and everything, and that's when they came in and stopped me.
Got it.
And I was like, hey, you got to go down to it. He didn't know how to go down there and get a variance and all that, and then he just disappeared on me. I couldn't make a report because I didn't know the guy's last name.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from council members at this time? Either for the applicant, the representative, or the departments or city attorney?
I guess this would be then for the city. Just, Mr. Dietrich, Is it a turn radius? Can you talk about the safety issues pertaining to the rest of the community and where the building is placed? Does that make sense?
Actually, let Dan handle that.
Dan.
Sure. Well, with regards to safety, the maneuvering variance that was requested would be slightly substandard from the city code. So there would be a need for that resident to do some backing maneuvers that take a little more of a step there. However, as far as a safety issue to the community, this is really more of a convenience factor for the resident. I would say more than something that is directly and adversely impacting the community. So at least when we had reviewed this application, we were looking at the historic structure and we're considering that aspect of the maneuvering variance that is before council this evening.
Does the maneuvering variance matter in this case? I mean, there's no garage door, so it's not going to be used as a garage.
It's not done with its renovation yet. It's going to have garage doors. They're not cut in yet.
Okay, okay.
We're reconfiguring the windows to make it look better. Yeah, so it'll look like that on the alley. So it'll have an entrance door for the dwelling space above, and then a garage for the main house and a garage for the carriage house dwelling.
There's 2 exits.
Oh, yeah.
There's 2 exits.
Yeah, the building code, you need 1 stair and a 3-foot door, and then your egress window out of your bedroom. That's what the building code requires. And since it's so close to the property line, the exterior walls and the sides will be fire rated per the building code, and no overhangs on that side. So everything is going to comply with the building code.
I think there's been a number of questions from council members that I would like to make sure that they get their full answers to that maybe would be helpful to be able to, again, facilitate some meetings between the applicant. I know you all had reached out, but I'm not sure any of those discussions had occurred with individuals. So I'm going to go ahead and actually refer this or postpone this legislation to our March 3rd meeting. So, Council President, I'd like to postpone this legislation to March 3rd.
Is there a second? Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Postpone.
Thank you.
Thank
Next,
you,
we
sir.
have ordinance 0257-2025 to grant a variance provisions of section 3312.09, IL 3312.21 landscaping and screening, 3312.25 maneuvering, 3312.29 parking spaces, 3312.49 required parking, 3333.18 building lines, and 3333.255 per yard of the Columbus City Coast for property located at 4600 Lakehurst Court to allow reduced development standards for mixed-use development ARO Apartment Office District. This is a companion variance to a rezoning ordinance we considered earlier in tonight's agenda. The requested council variance will allow redevelopment of the site with a multi-unit residential development. Will also maintain an existing office building and parking garage. Proposed site plan establishes 2 sub-areas, sub-area 1 and sub-area 2, which will be split into 2 separate parcels. Additional variances requiring 2 building lines require parking, aisle widths, parking lot screening, parking lot maneuvering, and parking lot dimensions and perimeter yards are included in this request, with most variances necessitated by the proposed lot split. The site plan demonstrates for a new apartment building with 625 units, with an existing office building of 57,660 square feet and a parking garage retained from the former office park. Proposal is approved from city staff and the Hayden Run Civic Association. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Second.
Call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff, the findings of council.
Second.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
And finally, move for passage.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, De Alcauer, Dorans Green, Remy, President Harden.
Pass.
Next, we have ordinance 0264-2025 to grant a variance provisions of section 3312.21A, landscaping and screening, 3312.27 parking setback line, 3312.49 required parking, and 3333.255 perimeter yard of the Columbus City Codes for property located at 106 West Castle Road to allow reduced development standards for apartment complex in the R1 Apartment Residential District. This is also a companion variance to rezoning on our ordinance earlier. The requested council variance commits to a site plan demonstrating 144 apartment unit complex and includes variances to reduce parking lot landscaping, parking setback, minimum number of parking spaces from 216 to 188, and a perimeter yard. Proposal is approved from city staff and the FAR South Area Commission. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, I move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
And finally, move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you. Next, we have ordinance 0265-2025 to grant a variance provisions of section 3333.035 AR4 apartment residential district use, 3312.49 required parking, and 3333.09 area requirements of the Columbus City Codes for the property located at 1876 North 4th Street to allow a medical office reduced development standards in the AR4 apartment residential district. Site consists of one parcel developed with a rooming house that is subject to the University District zoning overlay. The requested council variance will allow existing building to be repurposed with a medical office. A council variance is required because the current district does not allow for medical office uses. A variance to require parking and lot width requirements are included in this request. Proposal is approved from city staff, University Area Commission, and the University Impact District Review Board. I first move to accept the entire staff report into evidence as an exhibit.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Accept it.
Next, move to adopt the findings of staff as the findings of council.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Adopt it.
Thank you, and finally move for passage.
Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Passed.
Thank you, Council President. That's all we have in tonight's zoning agenda.
Seeing no further business coming for the zoning committee, is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second? Clerk, please call the row.
Bangston, Barosa de Padilla, Beatty, Dale, Coward, Dorans, Green, Remy, President Harden.
Meeting is adjourned.